Hi everyone, my name is Glenda with SureFit Designs. In this video, we're going to talk about the heart or apple-shaped hip person in relationship to the side seam of the SureFit Designs pants pattern. Now, when I use the term apple or heart shape in relationship to your hips and your waist, this is what I'm talking about. The waist is relatively small in relationship to a fuller, higher hip and often lower hip that is smaller than the high hip. So let's talk about some dimensions that would explain this. I've got some hypothetical dimensions on the board here. A waist would be 30 inches around. The high hip could be 40 inches around, and that might be at about 2 to 2.5 inches down. So that's quite a change in circumference in a very, very short distance. And the low hip is 38 inches. And we're going to say that this lady is somewhat short and that her total crotch is 24 inches, which when divided up to give a little bit longer back crotch than front crotch would give a 13-inch long back crotch and an 11-inch long front crotch. Of course, when those two dimensions are added together, it ends up being 24, so you get the full amount of length that you would require in your crotch line. Now, taking those dimensions and putting them over on the SureFit Designs pants pattern, we do start on pants back. And though a number of you already know how to work with the SureFit Designs pants pattern, I am going to do a very quick review. You take your back crotch length measurement and you find it on what I call the waist crotch grid. On the pants back, right here, you're going to be looking at these numbers, and as you work your way up, the lowest number is 12 inches, and then 12.5, 13, 13.5, etc., all the way on up to 20-inch long back crotch, which is pretty darn long. Then, coming up at this angle, it says here waist measurement. And so you find the smallest number to the largest number. You find your measurement number for your waist, in this case 30, and follow the waist measurement up, and your crotch length, in this case 13 inches, you follow the angle and slope coming down, and where the two lines crisscross, you make a dot. And that is the starting point for the center back of your pants. Then you use your low hip measurement, in this case 38, and we're going to mark in the back crotch extension point number 1 and back crotch extension point number 2 using your low hip measurement. And then to connect that together, we will use the designing stylus. And there is one arrowhead on here that says match to back crotch point number 1 on the pant pattern. So you take that arrowhead, put it into dot number 1, pivot into the waist, and then draw from your waist point down to your crotch point, and that establishes your back crotch curvature. Then as we continue on, we use the grid again, and you'll find your back crotch length measurement, number 13, and follow the line coming down, and the waist measurement of 30 up. Where those two lines crisscross, we make a dot, and I'll just make this dot a little bit bigger for you so that you can see it visually, and that's the side waist point. Then you use your designing stylus and connect side waist point to center back waist point. Now you'll also see that I've drawn in here the dart. The dart is very easily done by finding the letter that corresponds to your back crotch length. If you look at the number 13, it's got the letter B. 14 has letter C, 15 has letter D, etc. So she's the letter B. So I'm going to come down through the center of the dart where there's a series of letters, find the letter B, and then connect that dot up to the width of the parallel lines as I have already drawn. That dart is a 1-inch wide dart. All right, now we're going to go over to the side seam. To draw the side seam hip shape, if we take a look at the designing stylus, you'll see that there is a hip curvature notation on this curvy side. And we're going to find the best shape for your body with this particular curve. Now, because of the orientation of the pattern, I can't hold the designing stylus this way. So knowing where the hip curve is, I just flop the designing stylus over, and then I connect from the waist, and this series of dots says high hip. In the case for the example, that's 40 inches. And then the low hip, it says that, low hip measurement, mark in the 38. And then down the leg is the low hip measurement. So using the curve on the designing stylus, I'm going to come in like this and find the best possible connection, which would look very similar to this. And I will draw this in blue for you. And then as I come down into the leg area, you simply flop the stylus over and then continue the connection down as the leg straightens out and the curve is a lot more shallow. So that's the side seam. Now, as we take a look at that hip curvature, you're looking at that and you're saying, well, that's pretty curvy. And yes, it is. And of course, sewing that, if you've drawn it the way your body is, and if you sew it the way you've drawn it, then that curve will actually fit from your waist to your high hip area. But it causes some issues. And one of those issues is that, number one, it's a little bit harder to press, but number two is it is not a straight enough side seam in order for you to put a zipper in the side seam. So if we extend the waistline out to make this a little bit straighter curvature, then I can, number one, sew it easily, and number two, insert a side seam zip if I want to. So I'm just going to do that in red, and we're going to make the side seam look a little bit more like this. And so you can see the difference there, and I'll just finish the connection this way. Now, you say to me, yes, but Glenda, look what that's done. It's made the waistline that much bigger. And yes, it has. So now we need to use a dart structure. If you think about your full hip area, or in this case, the fullest hip is the high hip, and you're going into the smaller area being your waistline, we can take fabric and we need to conform it into your body. And the best way to do that, of course, is with darts. Those of you who are very straight-shaped figures, you need very little darting at all in your pattern. But somebody who's very curvy like this is going to require more darts. So now let's put a second dart in the back of this pattern. So for this, we measure the width that I have added onto the side seam. That's approximately 3/4 of an inch wide. So now I'm going to place that dart kind of midway in between the first dart and the side seam. And I'm just visually going to mark that like this. And I know that that's about 3/4 of an inch wide, so I need 3/8 on that side and 3/8 on that side of where the dart is going to go. Now this dart, the secondary dart, is usually shorter than the first dart, so we will do that as well. And oftentimes the dart can be angled more towards your hip bone. It really is a matter of what's going to look best on your body, so that can have a little bit different tilt to it. This dart is about 4.5 inches long. I'm going to make this dart approximately 3.5 inches long, and then I'm going to connect that up to my new markings, and it will look like this. And there I've placed in the secondary dart to give you really excellent fit at your waistline area, because you gals who have that very small waist in relationship to that fuller circumference really do need to use darts to create the best shaping possible. So we have done this now on the pants back. When you move on to the pants front pattern, which I've got up on the other side here, but you would see it if you're working with your SureFit Designs pants kit, you need to do the same process so that this side seam shape ends up being identical on both front and back. And yes, you would put in a secondary dart on the front of the pant as well. Now, what I have drawn here for clarity is called a strip down pattern, meaning that it doesn't have any seam allowances on it. So in order to cut it out and sew it together, you do want to use your designing stylus to add on seam allowances. And these slots that are on the designing stylus are 5/8 of an inch away from the outer edge. And the edge of the slot you would use is the edge that is nearest the outside edge to add on a seam allowance. And I'll just do this at the top of the pattern, but you would do it all the way around the entire exterior of the pant pattern. Additionally, you might want to sew these darts in a slight concave curve. That would look like this, where the side legs of that dart come inward. And what that does is it gives you just a little bit more shaping in this area for your high hip. You can do the same thing with that dart as well. And you may or may not need to do that with your darts, but that option is certainly there. Okay, so you can see how easy it is to deal with somebody who has the heart or apple-shaped hip person when it comes to working with the SureFit Designs pants pattern. So for this and other videos that are going to help you get one of the best fits possible, please make sure that you go on over to the SureFit Designs Learning Center and click on the video library, where all the videos have been categorized, labeled, and numbered for your easy reference.